everybody, Steven here, and for today's video I'm going to show you a test that I do with my clients and myself personally to kind of figure out what my shoulder range of motion is for the day. It's also a way to kind of test, apply a corrective or a mobility stretch or series or something like that, and then retest and see how you've improved. And we're talking specifically with the thoracic spine and then the ribs, okay? A side benefit to this is that it actually activates your serratus anterior, right? So this muscle that goes underneath here, which just actually brings that shoulder blade up against the ribs when you're bringing that arm overhead. Typically when this isn't active, you're actually engaging the traps more in your neck more than you need to. So with a lot of people that I'm seeing overhead dysfunction, typically that serratus is turned off and there's a lot of tightness in the thoracic spine here. So with this, you're going to need either a half dome here. You could actually use a regular foam roller, but it has to be 16 inches. I could also use the PVC pipe here, which I'm going to show you the same drill with that here in a second. Now for this, I'm going to show you the actual test, and then I'll show you one variation that I do in a dead bug position with my spine neutral on the ground to help reinforce this position. But with this, all I'm going to do is bring this in between my elbows here, which is kind of hard with the foam roller here. But once I'm here, I want it so that the palm, the elbow, and the shoulder are all in alignment, meaning I'm not trying to go in or out. This helps to keep that in place, which is one of the benefits of doing this over something like the PVC pipe, is it's going to lock that in a little bit better. But this is something that you'll see in Katie Bowman's system, restorative exercise, and I'm going to put some links for her information on this as well, but this is actually where that's coming from, and a great test. But once I'm here, and I'll show you from the side here, if I'm standing like this, I want to make sure that my ribs are down so I'm not flaring my back, which is typically what you're seeing when somebody's trying to go overhead with their arms. Whether that's shoulder press or just lifting their arm up, the lower back is actually arching to compensate for that. So you'll see them here, right? And I'll actually have people just go, I'll just say bring it up overhead. And they can get this to the top, but the lower back arches to get there, and they get what we call rib flare, meaning my ribs are opening up. But if I hold that down, my feet are directly underneath my hips here. If I hold that down, so if you're looking at me from the side, everything is neutral. So you're not seeing me like in this position right from the get-go. Right? If I'm here, holding that here, slight bend of the elbows, notice that my arms are completely straight, and then I hold that and I slowly raise up, and I can't let anything change. Boom, that's it. That's my shoulder range of motion, okay? And go a little bit further, and that's it. Where you'll usually see if somebody wants to go overhead, right, and I say, all right, just reach your arms overhead, we'll start here, we'll go up. They'll go up, but you'll even see this starts to arch, my ribs start to open up. That's creating that anterior pelvic tilt, meaning my hips or my pelvis is tilting forward like this, right? Under load, I'm not necessarily going to want that, right? Especially if it's a really heavy weight, because now we're talking about all that load going towards the lower back, more so than it should be on my shoulders and that thoracic spine helping us out there. So with this, it's a great test for that. And what I can do is I can do this, all right, I'm here, right? And I'm either having somebody say, hey, you're making it about here, or I'm videotaping myself and looking at it and be like, okay, then I'm going to go do some of those correctives like open book, cat-cow. I'm going to do thoracic opener on the foam roller. I'm going to do something to help move my ribs around and open up that thoracic spine. I'm going to come back, retest, and see that I've made an improvement, right? So with this, one of the reasons why we're having that stickiness is just a lot of people's thoracic spine, right? This upper back is really, really tight. But this has to do a lot with the ribs, because this ends up locking down this position. I always show people, I mean, if these are my ribs right here, these should articulate, meaning that they should actually be able to move a little bit. They should rotate to a degree. We have it so that they're so rigid, they're not allowing that. So as I start to bring that arm up where my ribs would actually move a little bit and allow for that movement, they're stuck. So as I come here, if this isn't going to move, that's got to come from somewhere. Boom, it's going to it's going either higher or lower, right? It's moving to another joint to find that mobility, right? In this instance, you'll usually see that anterior pelvic tilt where the lower back is arching here, and you might even see somebody's head come forward to compensate for that, where we can't stack vertically, right? So, great test for that. One of the side benefits with this though is as I come up in this position, if I'm holding everything like I need to, I'm actually activating that serratus anterior, right? And that's one of those things where I'm seeing a lot of dysfunction where somebody comes to me and their trap is overactive, right? They do overhead movements and typically like their neck is really, really sore the next day. It's giving them headaches, things like this. That coming from the serratus anterior, if it's not active like it needs to be, I always say like your arm's a diving board, right? If my arm is a diving board, I want support from the bottom here. I don't want to try and support it from the top because as that has weight on it and I'm supporting that from the top, it's just making this really, really tight. Doesn't like it, right? And that's what's going on. Because this isn't doing its job, it has to go somewhere, and now my neck and my trap are going to try and actually take on the work of my serratus because it's just not doing what it needs to. Now, the serratus anterior is helping keep my shoulder blade stable up against the ribs. A lot of times you'll actually see that shoulder blade wing out, right? If you've heard that term, it starts to actually pop up off the back. So instead of staying flat to your back like this, right, it actually like wings out like this. And because it wings out, now you're creating a situation where something else is going to have to stabilize that shoulder blade, right? In this case, we're talking about your trap. So creating a very strong and a very active serratus is going to help to keep that up against the back so we're not using other muscles that we don't want to use. If I use a PVC pipe here, as long as I create that stacked position and I have that little bit of bend in here, as I slowly come up here, right, I can create that same type of movement. You see me stop about the same spot, right? If you're like, I don't quite know if I'm vertical or not, a test that we do is we get you up against the wall. If I go flat, heels to the wall, and I pull my head back, right, I'm going to arch my lower back and my head is pulled too far back. So what I'm going to do is bring this out just slightly. I'm going to bring my feet forward just a little bit. I'm going to take my ribs, I'm going to push that flat. So now my whole back is flat to this wall, and I'm not forcing my head back necessarily, I'm just letting it stack vertically. I'm not bringing it way out here like this, I'm just here. Not quite pushed to the wall, a little bit forward. That's it. Now I'm flush against the wall. I'm going to take that, which is ribs down, and now as I come forward and translate that, I'm going to hold that position. And now I'm stacked in a way where I'm not arching my lower back, right? Everything is where it needs to be. So I could do that first if I need to. Then I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to do this test, right? I could do this standing where I'm coming up, but I'm literally treating that as an activation drill for my serratus. I'm here, I'm going to take a deep belly breath. I'm going to hold that pressure, keep everything in alignment. I'm going to raise up. I'm going to hit that mark where I feel that activating, push a little bit, pause, 1, 2, come down slowly. I'm going to do anywhere from 5 to 10 of these. And I'll probably typically do about 2 rounds. And I'm going to do this before I go to my overhead movement. Or if I'm doing pull-ups or something like this, I'm trying to get this active before. Another way I like to do this is actually just through integration. I'm going to do this first, then I'm going to do that overhead press or that pull-up or whatever overhead type base movement that I'm doing where I'm in this archetype where my arms are straight like this. I'll do this first, then that. And I'll do that throughout the whole workout. Meaning, instead of isolating the corrective, I'm going to just tag it to whatever I'm doing, right? So corrective first, then that strength-based movement. And usually I'm already going for anywhere from 3 to 6 rounds, right? With that, so I get that corrective for that many rounds as well. Now my numbers might not be high. I'm not trying to wear it out. I'm just trying to cue the body to make it active before it does that exercise that it's going to need to have that, whether that's a serratus or whatever it is, activated. Okay? Now, I'm going to translate this to the floor now into a dead bug position. So we're going to go ahead and cut over to that, and then I'll explain one of the benefits of doing it in that position over standing. All right, so translating this to the floor, I can actually use a dead bug position where I can get my spine neutral, right? So if I'm worried like, hey, I don't quite know if I'm arching my back when I'm doing the standing variation, right? If I get you on the floor and we can get into a dead bug position, we can make the spine neutral, and then you can hold that and then do this, which is going to actually make it so that you don't have to kind of guess whether or not your back is in the right position, because if it's not making contact with the floor, you know you're arching it, all right? So I'll just use the PVC pipe here for the first variation. So if I'm here, right, my back is neutral. If I was arching my back, I could slide my hand underneath this. I don't want that. You'll feel the difference in your pelvis between being neutral with your spine neutral or you untucking it like this and that arch happening, right? But once I'm here, I want that same alignment, right? Deep breath into the belly. Hold that pressure, that intra-abdominal pressure, and then I'm going to slowly let this come up overhead. I'm going to reach that point where I'm good, and then I'm going to come back here in neutral. Loose with my hands if I need to, because if I'm clenching this, I'm going to activate other things. Just make sure that your palm keeps in position there, and then I'm going to come up. Same thing, 5 to 10. Now, let's say you're struggling more on the intra-abdominal pressure side, where it's like I can't hold my legs like that. It's just every time I try to, my back arches and it's just not working for me. That's where we could use a medicine ball, right? If we need to, or a chair or a bench, right? As long as I can create a situation where I can relax the legs but still hold this neutral. Now once I'm here, I'm gonna breathe that pressure in, hold that there, hold my back neutral, pull up, and then I'm going to pull in like this, okay? Same thing, 5 to 10. I can still do both variations of this with this half dome. It's just tricky to get to, right? So if I'm here now, neutral, slowly go up, hit that peak, pull back, right? Tension over time with this also. So it's not me trying to rush through it. It's me spending quality time and dragging that out a little bit, pausing at the top for a split second, then coming back. Speed hides inefficiency, but also depending on what you're doing, I mean, speed can actually mask the range of motion that you have, because you're actually just going to pull through it really, really quick and then come back without spending that time. So tension over time with this. That being completely different, obviously, if you're doing speed-based movements, right? If you're going to do powerlifting or explosive-based movements, you're going to need the speed. This isn't the time for that, right? But I could do this and then go do that speed-based movement, right? If I'm looking for activation out of my serratus there. So, great test that you can use, but also a great way to activate that serratus anterior, right? With that. So I use it for both, depending on the needs of the person and the situation that I have going on. And that can change based off the day, right? So that is the test, and then the drill that you can use for testing what your shoulder range of motion is, right? What your rib mobility is and your thoracic spine mobility, but also activating that serratus anterior. I'm going to attach some videos and stuff like that, just showing you some thoracic spine mobility drills that you can do that would accompany this if I'm using it for that test, where I want to, hey, what's my shoulder range of motion? All right, well, thoracic spine's really, really stuck right now, so let's do these other drills. I'll attach those for you. And also some of Katie Bowman's stuff, because she has phenomenal information in regards to just biomechanics and how the body works and stretches and mobility drills and all of that you can do. So definitely check out the Restorative Exercise Institute and all of her information. Tons of books. She has I think 8 to 10 books now that are just great in terms of how we move and what the body's capable of. So if you guys like the video, hit the like button for me. If you want to continue to follow along with all of my content, hit the subscribe button for me. And thank you so much for watching.